What happens when a healer needs healing? At the foot of Enugu Hill, where the red earth glows after rain, lived Adaora. She wasn't just a nurse. She was the heartbeat of her community. Mothers leaned on her. Elders trusted her. Children ran to her arms, calling her Auntie Nurse. But one morning, everything changed. The same hands that had delivered life, the same hands that had comforted the broken, began to tremble. And in that trembling, Adaora discovered a painful truth. She had nothing left to give. The rains had just begun to retreat in Enugu, leaving the hills soaked and the red earth steaming under the morning sun. In the heart of a modest neighborhood at the base of Enugu Hill lived Adaora, a 38-year-old nurse whose name was whispered with both respect and dependency. She was everyone's Auntie Nurse. Children ran to her when they scraped their knees. Women sought her counsel for childbirth fears. The men, especially the elders, called her the one who saved my life. But for all that Adaora gave, no one seemed to ask one question. How are you, Auntie? Adaora's days were a seamless chain of service. At 5 a.m., she was already up, heating water for her neighbor Mama Ease, who had arthritis. By 6 a.m., she was bathing her younger brother Chinedu, a 26-year-old with cerebral palsy. By 7 a.m., she was walking the dusty road to the local clinic where she worked 6 days a week. Her world ran like a machine powered by devotion. But machines, no matter how precise, were out. That morning, she entered the clinic late. Her uniform was spotless, her hair tied in its usual scarf, but her eyes looked hollow. Nurse Adaora, the doctor is asking for you. Uju, the receptionist, said quickly, handing her a stack of patient files. Adaora offered a tired smile. I'm coming. Dr. Afani, a brusque man who had once told her she had the patience of a priest, met her with urgency. Madam, the delivery last night, twins. Premature. The mother is bleeding again. I need you to monitor her. Without protest, Adaora turned and walked into the maternity ward. She worked through the day. No breakfast. No break. At 2 p.m., she downed a sachet of pure water. At 4 p.m., she was called to the pharmacy to help stock supplies. At 6:30 p.m., as the sun bled across the Enugu skyline, she finally walked home. Her body was heavy, but her feet moved like they had no choice. She barely noticed the neighborhood children who waved at her or the old widow who usually sat on the corner. Her mind buzzed, her ears rang. The hilltop breeze, once soothing, now felt like knives against her skin. At home, Chinedu was crying. On my back. My back is paining me. Adaora tried to smile, crouching beside his wheelchair. Give me 5 minutes, she said, moving past him into her room. She barely made it to the bed before collapsing. And then she did something she hadn't done in 20 years. She cried. Not quiet tears, but gut-deep sobs that shook her chest. She cried for the years lost, the dreams shelved, the friendships sacrificed, the exhaustion that felt like drowning. Outside, Chinedu kept calling. Inside, Adaora wept into her pillow, ashamed for feeling what she'd always pushed away. I can't do this anymore. Adaora woke the next morning to banging on the compound gate. Her eyes were swollen, her throat dry. She sat up slowly, realizing she had slept in her uniform. Chinedu's voice floated through the window. Auntie, they're calling you for next door. Mama Ease fell. Adaora stared at the wall for a long moment. Then, for the first time in years, she did not move. She didn't rise, didn't shout a promise to come. She sat on the edge of her bed, staring at her hands. The same hands that had delivered babies, stitched wounds, fed her brother, held strangers while they passed. Those hands were trembling. The knocks grew louder, then faded. Later that morning, she stood before the mirror. Her face looked unfamiliar. Tired, yes. But beneath the fatigue was something else. Resentment. It shocked her. She loved Chinedu. She cared about the community. But something inside her had hardened. For years, she thought selflessness was noble. Now it felt like slow suicide. The truth hit hard. She had poured everything she had into everyone, except herself. That afternoon, Adaora did something unthinkable. She called the clinic and asked for a week off. Uju's gasp echoed through the phone. You? Leave? But what about? I need rest, Adaora said, cutting her off. Please. She hung up before the guilt could return. She spent the first day sleeping, the second, journaling, the third, sitting under the mango tree behind her house with her phone turned off. Stillness felt like sin. She was haunted by thoughts of babies needing vaccinations, elders waiting for drugs, Chinedu's unspoken dependence. But slowly, a new voice emerged in her heart. You are more than what you give. On the fifth day, she walked into a cafe she used to visit during nursing school. It was still there, dusty chairs, lazy ceiling fans, a faded photo of Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie on the wall. As she stirred her tea, she heard her name. Adaora. It was Tiga, her old university friend. Once inseparable, life had scattered them like dry leaves. They hugged tightly. Tiga looked good, confident, rested, alive. How long has it been? Tiga asked, pulling out a chair. You look different. Adaora smiled faintly. I feel different. They talked for hours. Adaora spoke of Chinedu, the clinic, the years of saying yes until her body screamed no. Tiga listened quietly. You know, Tiga said finally, it's okay to love others and still choose yourself. Adaora swallowed. I never thought I could. That's how they train us, especially as women, as Africans. But if your cup stays empty, everyone suffers too. You can't serve from exhaustion. Silence settled between them. I think I forgot who I am, Adaora whispered. Tiga smiled gently. Then let's help you remember. The next few days were like a rebirth. Adaora began waking early, not to serve but to stretch, breathe, and write. She visited the community library and signed up for an online course in trauma counseling, something she had always wanted to do. She hired a trained caregiver, Blessing, to assist with Chinedu 2 days a week. At first, she felt shame, but the first day she came home and found Chinedu smiling, hair braided, cheeks round with laughter, she cried again. This time from relief. On Sunday, she wore a choral dress and walked to church. Not because she had to, but because she wanted the warmth of music, people, and hope. After service, a woman approached her, frantic. Auntie Adaora, my sister's child has malaria. You must follow me. Adaora raised her hand gently. I'm not on duty today. The woman blinked. But I will check in later, but today, I am resting. For the first time in 20 years, Adaora chose herself. And the world did not collapse. Instead, something beautiful happened. She began to heal. By the second week of Adaora's leave, the neighborhood noticed the shift, not just in her absence, but in the change that followed her return. She still wore her nurse's uniform, still greeted the children, still waved to Mama Ease. But something about her was lighter, whole. At the clinic, her return was met with relief and curiosity. Dr. Afani, always stoic, nodded. You look rested, he said. I am, she replied. And I've started setting limits. Uju whispered. We miss you, but this glow? It's giving soft life. They laughed, but Adaora was serious. She implemented break schedules for nurses. She started a weekly staff wellness check-in. She refused to take patient files home. And most shockingly, she told the matron she would no longer be available every Sunday. Even God rested, she added softly. Outside of work, the transformation deepened. Adaora joined a book club hosted by an elderly professor on the hill. She took up gardening, planting aloe vera and bitter leaf behind her home. Chinedu began smiling more, talking more. With Blessing's help, he was learning to draw. One evening, he wheeled into the backyard holding a picture. Auntie C, this is you. The sketch was crude but showed Adaora under the mango tree, hair free, arms wide, sun behind her. She stared at it for a long time. She saw herself, not the giver, not the nurse, not the caretaker, but the woman behind the labels. Tears welled in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. Weeks turned into months. Adaora continued her counseling course. She began offering informal mental health talks at the clinic. Slowly, more women came, not with fevers or pregnancies, but with confessions. I feel overwhelmed, Auntie. I haven't slept in weeks. My husband doesn't understand what I carry. To each one, Adaora offered not just advice, but presence. because she finally had something to give. A full cup. One afternoon, a letter arrived from the state hospital. A position had opened, head of community health and mental wellness. They had heard of her efforts in Enugu Hill. It came with better pay, fewer shifts, and a small grant to start a wellness center. Adaora sat in silence after reading it. It was everything she once dreamed of and thought impossible. She walked to the window. Chinedu was laughing with blessing. The neighborhood buzzed with life. And inside her chest, no weight. Just peace. She smiled. It's time. 3 months later, the Madhu Center for Wellness opened at the edge of Enugu Hill. Painted in soft yellow, trimmed with vines, the small building had a reading corner, 2 counseling rooms, and a garden in the back. On the wall outside, painted in bold letters, was the motto, "You can't pour from an empty cup. Let healing begin with you." People came, young, old, mothers, fathers, not always with sickness, but with questions, with burnout, with burdens carried in silence. And Adaora, no longer running on fumes, met them with warmth. She wasn't saving the world. She was sharing her journey. And from her full cup, she poured what she now had in abundance. Compassion, boundaries, rest, and truth. Moral of the story: you can't pour from an empty cup. Take care of yourself, emotionally, physically, and mentally, so that what you give others, it comes from a place of abundance, not depletion. Self-care is not selfish, it is survival. That brings us to the end of the story. What lesson did you take from it? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and turn on post notifications so you'll know whenever we release a new video. Also, feel free to share this with someone who might enjoy it. Thank you so much.